In this conversation, I talked to Jon Corippo, former Chief Learning Officer of Q, current 6th grade elementary school teacher at Hillside Elementary in Madera, California, and co-author of Edu Protocols. He gives us some great ideas. We talk about thin slides, which I think I'm going to be using here pretty soon in class. So take a listen. We'll have some links for some stuff, and hope you enjoy it.
Whenever you're ready, boss. Let her rip.
All right. Well, we got Jon Corippo with us here today, and I'm going to kind of introduce him, but there's a lot more that he can introduce himself. You're teaching 4th grade this year, is that correct?
6th.
6th grade, 4th, or an even number at least, at Hillside Elementary School. And tell us, you give us more about yourself.
Well, let's see. This is year 25. Started as an emergency credential teacher. Worked my way up through ed tech coordinator to county office. Then I went to started Minarets High School with Mike Niehoff. If you want to do something fun that'll suck the life out of you for 4 years, start a high school from scratch. First prom, first football game, first homecoming, first basketball game, first time to the finals. It's a lot, but it was really cool. And then went from there to being a director and then assistant superintendent for Mariposa County office. And then did a stint for Q as the executive director and chief academic officer. And I decided to take a sabbatical and go back to the classroom. Nice. And it's worked out really cool. My favorite thing about being a teacher versus an admin is your day is pretty finite, right?
Yes.
When the bell rings, you're back in charge of your life. That part's cool. When you're an admin or an executive director, board members are calling on weekends and things are happening on Sunday during the barbecue. That piece happens less with a teacher than it does. And so that's a nice thing on the teacher side. But the flip side is, I think, and you already mentioned this, the flip side is your day is not yours.
Yeah.
You got a ship to run and you're running the freaking ship and you get about 18 minutes to shovel some lunch down and then you're back at it. Like it's like running a football camp all day long. You can't just go, hey guys, take 10. It just does not work well.
Getting phone calls in the middle of the night because the alarm went off or whatever else.
All that.
So on the other end, it is nice as a teacher. You can put off that after 3 o'clock work, but I know you you have some techniques to cut down on some of that prep time. I love to do the prep time. So sometimes I do a little bit more. I remember there was a few years ago, my wife was like, hey, maybe do some less of that at home, but I like designing all the stuff. So to me, it's a little bit of a creative outlet too, of when I spend that extra time designing that good lesson, but for me on the back end, that saves some time. And I know you have a lot of that type of stuff where you're thinking of the kids in mind when you design your lesson, but also how do they get good feedback and how do you not work yourself to the bone in order for those kids to get that good lesson and also get good, meaningful feedback?
Right. Well, and the first thing I did was I used, I played a little football. And one of the things I learned, when you go from high school football, you get to watch the film once a week. Here's the film. In junior college, you get to watch the film once or twice a week. They might video elements of practice. When you get to a D1 school, they analyze the entire practice every day. So when I would come out of class in my locker, there would be a breakdown of what I did wrong in practice yesterday. And they were giving us feedback before the game. And so I started teaching. I was very much a Harry Wong guy. I was in a Clovis Unified District, which is super organized, and they do a lot of good things. But one of the things they don't really do is examine things outside of their own boundaries. And so as I started this journey through Fresno County office and Eastern Madera County, and then with the Q stuff, I started going, oh, everybody's kind of bad at this. They just don't realize it. And the analogy I like to use is if it was 1978 and I told you we were going to get coffee, there's really only 3 places, Rocky. We're going to go to 7-Eleven or Dunkin' Donuts. Second option is we're going to go to the local little cafe, right? And the third option is we're going to go to Denny's. Like if you say we're going to get coffee, that was the only option. And we were blissfully unaware that the Italians had been doing coffee very well for the last 150 years, right? So now when you look at a Starbucks or a Pete's, which is pretty good for American coffee, that doesn't even still get close to Italian coffee experience. So I like to use that as like a parallel storyline. Just because we're working really hard and just because we've all agreed this is how we do it, it doesn't mean it's the best. And so the analogy of both of those stories is just because we're working really hard in school, just because we've been doing it this way for a long time, doesn't mean there's not a better model that we have not yet found. And when I teach sixth grade, we go through ancient Greece, and I think it was Plato for Beginners book a kid bought me. And you know the lesson of the circles?
I don't recall it off the top of my head, but maybe I
It's
will.
okay. It's okay. It's fairly, it's kind of minutia, but it's simple elegance, which is there were always circles before we named them circles. They were always there, right? Before humans figured out what the wheel was, they looked up at the moon and they're like, hey, that thing's round. And at some point, somebody converted that into another thing. And so my theory is in teaching, there are circles that we have not yet named. There are things that are there that we haven't realized the power of. And so that's a big part of the protocols model. The other thing I'm really big on is I'm not so big on grades. I'm bigger on feedback, right? And so the problem with grades, I saw a great quote from Sean Zebarth. He's an English teacher down at Huntington Beach. And he said, the problem with the grade system is it's about forcing kids to be convergent. And that's not really what we're going for, right? We're going for kids who can push the limits. What we need to do is have every high school in America graduating a couple of kids that think like Elon Musk. And, Zuckerberg's got his ups and downs, and so does Jobs, right? But most of those people who are bad at school, and they're the ones that are providing a lot of the innovation. Do you think Larry Ellison was fun to have in an English class? I will bet he was not the most fun you've ever had in an English class. So a lot of those innovators have really kind of survived school unscathed more than they were enhanced by school. And so my always thing is I don't ever want to stack of worksheets. And we talk about the mix in Edu protocols. So the classic Denny's cup of coffee lesson that I got all the way through school at Paso Robles High School, just up the road from you, and St. Rose School. And then at Fresno City College in Fresno State. The classic was the teacher's going to announce the lesson. We are going to learn about fill in the blank. And I'm going to amaze you with tales, amazing tales about blank. And you will take notes so that I can prove you were listening. Right? The English teacher version of this is we're going to read and then you will do a test to prove you read it. What if we've got kids reading because they want to? That's that. There's a little shift there, right? So the flow in a classic classroom is talk for X amount of minutes, 20, 25, 30 is pretty normal, right? And then the kids do the chapter at the end. They answer the 6 questions. And I think pretty much every teacher on the planet is unimpressed with the 6 questions at the end of the chapter. Nobody goes, oh, sure. These questions are amazing. Like they're changing kids' lives. Or they do, some teachers pay teachers, or they do a worksheet. And I like to tell the joke, maybe that worksheet was in the cabinet when I inherited this classroom, right? So, and then now everybody's rushing out of class, rushing. Give me your papers. And there's a stack of papers and there's 5 kids who don't turn it in, but they tell you they did. And they have to conference with their mom and all that. That's been the traditional model. And so what I really started tinkering with is how can I give everybody feedback right now? And it turns out that it goes kind of like this. Ask them a question that's a little bit hard without teaching them first. You see where I'm going with this?
No, I told you said a ton of stuff that I want to touch on. I should be taking notes so I can go back.
Well, I'll wrap it up with this. The basic mix is if you're doing math, hit them with a question, even if it's, what's this or what's that, and then get everybody's input and then coach them because these kids are gamers. And once they fail, their instinct is, how do I pass this level? Well, if you make them listen for 20 minutes before they try the level, they're already done with you, right? So the mix is do a thing, use technology to find out really quickly. It could be a Google form. It could be Socrative. It could be quizzes. It could be a thin slide. Just make one slide. And then I can say things like this. You guys really don't get what's going on, do you? Would you like to know more? And they're like, yeah, because, I want to. And then you go a little deeper now that their brains have opened, a little kind of like the little alien, the little aliens that open and they're like, yes, there's a thing in there. And then you wrap up with another quick hit and whip around the room to make sure that what you were talking about sank in. And so that's the mix right there. So there's still direct instruction, there's still lecture, there's still a worksheet kind of thing, there's still an activity, but we're changing the quantity and the timing. And then I'll let you get to whatever questions you had along those lines.
Well, no, for sure. Well, I just talking about grades, I kind of feel the same way at this point, teaching seventh grade social studies. Every kid in my class has the ability to learn the stuff I'm teaching. You know, if I present it to them the correct way. And most of the time we look at old grades, we're both older guys, and it was all conforming to that teacher's classroom, right? You did you check the boxes and you got good grades.
Mhm.
It wasn't necessarily do you know the content? Because I can't tell you how many classes that I got a good grade in that I just crammed and studied, passed the test, and then boom.
And that's the key to the repetitions, right? You're only holding it in your short-term memory. I like to use the model of a floppy disk. If you had to keep all your music on a floppy disk, you're only going to have 4 songs, bro, right? And so if you want new songs, some songs have to go.
But
that's how short-term memory works.
One of the things I got from you that I've been doing for a long, long time now is that in order to be successful on a test, don't give out like the study guide, the cheat sheet type of deal. I mean, you could give a little bit of here's what you need to know for the test, but practice the test. If I'm going to practice, if I'm going to make layups, if I'm going to make layups in a game,
I better make them in practice.
Over and over. So I've shifted to, hey, here's a study guide. It's more like these are the concepts on the test, and let's do a bunch of practice tests. That helps take care of that test anxiety. It helps take care of
how many times have we seen a teacher who does, I'm going to make the test tricky to see if they learned.
Yeah.
How does that work? Like, so how would that go in a teacher PD? Well, we've been practicing the Google Slides all week, but to get your continuing education units, you need to use PowerPoint. Dude, people are going to be pissed.
Yeah.
And so I really got that. I got to give Mike Niehoff credit for locking in on that. Make the work the same thing as the test, and then make it harder because they know what's coming, right?
Yeah. And then the other thing you said too that really hit upon is our normal lesson is you put the objective on the board, like you said, and then this is what I'm going to teach, and I do that. But I will tell you that there's times that I didn't put the objective up. And we started a conversation, whether it was an exploratory start to the class.
Why over control it?
Yeah, here's 15 minutes. Read this material, watch this video. In your group, discuss what the papers I put on your table, and then we start talking. And then I ask them, why do you think we're studying this? Like, why are we studying about Martin?
Why did we just spend 25 minutes on this?
And I will get I'll get a ton of kids that will recite my objective, even though I didn't tell them.
That's awesome.
And then I will also get kids that give better objectives than what I thought in the first place. So that
I used to be afraid of that, but now I depend on it. I depend on the 2 smart kids, and they change roles. It's not always the same 2 kids, but I really have made the kid that goes, you know what this is really about? Like I live for that answer, because that is the one that provides the whole aha moment. Now I've got a new one for you, Rocky, that I think you're going to like. I've only been doing this for about 3 or 4 weeks, and it's called the Thin Slide Study Guide. So I'm pretty sure you've seen Thin Slides, but I'll explain it for your listeners. The basic idea is you give kids 3 minutes and you give them a vocabulary word. Here's a good one: Visigoths. Go. 1 word, 1 picture, 3 minutes, and then make a claim or an observation about what you find. It's basically, if you want to go old school, it's basically like KWL chart, except
for sure,
I'm giving kids access to Google. I'm not making them, like, if you line up 37th graders and tell me about Visigoths, they're like, London, 1988, weird band like Oasis. No. So you give them the ability to go get down in Google and find some stuff, right? So that's been a lot of fun. So Kim Vogie at one point said she was doing a Thin Slide study guide, and my mind went, ooh. So dig this. Let's say you got 30 kids in the class. Let's say you got 25 vocab words. That's a pretty normal amount, right? For a section, right? 25, 30 words.
Yeah.
You give every kid 1 word. About 4 or 5 kids might get a double, and that's fine. On the slide, I've got name 1, name 2, name 3. I'll explain more about that in a minute. Then I have the key words. So normally in a thin slide, everybody would be doing Visigoths. So you'd have 23 looks at Visigoths. But in this model, this is review. And so everybody gets a different word. So Constantinople, Charlemagne, Visigoth, ransack, right? Whatever I'm going to do. Every kid gets one word. And then can I get an amen on this? 6th and 7th graders are horrific at paraphrasing. Can I get amen?
Yeah, pretty much. They either want to just copy it verbatim, or it's either, hey, can you, yes, I just say yes.
So what I do is I have them copy the definition from Google, and then right next to that, rewrite it in their own words. So watch what the elements are here. 3 names, 1 picture, definition, steal it off Google, paraphrase it, and then syllabicate it. I'm sneaking in a little language arts. And here's the cool part. So you got 30 words. The kids are building the study guide now, Rocky. And then they each get 6 seconds or 4 seconds to present. So Visigoth, oh man, these were bad dudes from Turkmenistan. Okay, good. Next one. Why are there 3 names? Because on the next day or the day after, you can do every other day or every day, Rocky is going to take John's slide and redo it. New picture, other definition, reparaphrase. And so the whole class gets another kid's slide. Guess what we're going to do the next day? So we just got 3 reps on those key vocabulary concepts and terms. What's my prep, bro?
Nothing. And the kids are going deeper every day. So the first days, I want to say easy, but I don't like saying easy, but we just,
let's say accessible. How about we say
it's the most common definition, but by the 3rd day, like, well, I can't put that definition because it's already been up there. I can't put that definition because it's already been up there. So I need to find a different definition.
Yep.
So they're really,
so there's about 5 things happening there at once. One is, as a teacher, I'm not spending weekends of prep doing PowerPoints that kids frankly are not going to watch. They're not. Second is I don't have to stand in front of the room and make them take notes. They're eating the dog food every day, right? Third, I have nothing to grade tonight because they're all going to do pretty well. So I give them 5 points for doing it completed, right?
Yeah.
And then guess what? If they had to do an Iron Chef on day 4 or even a bubble test on day 4, they're going to freaking kill it. So then the test scores go up. And that's kind of that's a really good cross section of the Edge of Protocols mindset. Plus so many teachable moments because kids are going to do this and that. One more, I haven't really perfected how it works yet though. Let's say I did a slide on day 1. So I did Visigoths. I'm working out how that first kid gets approval of the second kid. Throw a little Nero in there, right? Yes, I agree that slide is accurate. No, dude, you are faking it. So try to get some student ownership in there. But it's been really fun, really, really fun.
No, that all sounds great. And, that's one thing in talking about less work is I don't grade a lot of work. And I'll sometimes get teachers like, well, you don't. And I'm like, well, the first thing I'm doing is I'm trying to teach. Well, one, I want to present work the kids want to do, but that can't happen all the time, right? There's times where it's like, hey, this
sometimes
it's just fun day in the world.
Sometimes we're just getting out of axe and cutting the tree down. It's just, we're just doing it.
But I try to instill that the work has purpose other than me awarding you some points. Like if you define the words and you do well, summarizing, well, when I give you the assessment next week, whatever the assessment may be, you're going to do well on that assessment. And I'll grade that because then that tells me what you did. But I'm not just going, okay, I got to mark points on this and I got to put that in the grade book and do all these other things. It's just another way to eliminate. And what the activity that you were saying, kind of the same thing, really easy to look at. You can quickly check for understanding. You can quickly grade. You don't have
to put that slide deck in grid view on Google Slides. You can scan it pretty reliably in under 2 minutes and go, we're good. And then if they do mess up too, you just flag them for tomorrow and go, you guys, these were wrong. We got to get this right. Supernatural process, right? It's a supernatural process. So, and that's a low level attempt. I can, for your listeners, I can share high level, but that's super low prep, super high input, super fast feedback. Your principal's happy because you put in 3 grades for review. The kids could use those slides to do their harder test, right? If you're that kind of person, if you're an open notes person, and dude, you're rocking. You are rocking.
Yeah, and you can use this. This could be for the sake of the times that we're in. This could be all online.
Oh
Or
my
this
God,
could
yeah.
be in class. This could be, I mean, when we can actually sit at tables together, it could be, hey, let's discuss, like those three people you could have at a table, or you could move, I could even see this being like almost like a musical chairs thing where you leave your slide open. And I know we can't do that in this day and age, but my point is it's something that's always useful. It's
Right.
not just like a
No, it's
one-time
not
shot
just
thing. It's
distance
not a
learning, and
just
it's not just face to face.
so.
Yeah.
All right, what else you got? You said
Um,
some more in-depth stuff. What else you got that's more in-depth?
well, my favorite fancy protocol right now that I would like to share with you if you haven't seen is Number Mania. Have you seen that one in action yet?
I don't know if I've seen it, just since I'm
Okay.
single subject. I don't always take a look at, other
You're
subjects.
gonna you're gonna freak out at this. Number Mania is big for social studies. Big. So dig this for Number Mania. You make a Google form, or it could be a Microsoft form, right? You make a form. There's only 3 questions: your name, your number, and your fact. So now you're a history guy. Let's say we were doing Pearl Harbor. My number is December 7th, 1941, and my fact is that was the day of the attack. Your number is 7:55 a.m., and that is when the first bomb fell. And some other kid's fact is 378 Japanese planes, and another kid is 4 American battleships. You see where this is going? So instead of sending kids home with all 30 kids needing to get 30 facts, what I'm going to do in this is go Google form, have 30 kids get the facts. I could send them to Wikipedia, whatever, as long as there's a lot of numbers on the page. Okay. Because, I want to do a sidebar there. Wikipedia is just fine for what it is.
Yep, I totally agree.
The first key to that is no source is 100% accurate. If you're not sure, check with Pluto. Pluto's been screwed over 3 times in the last 10 years. No source is perfect, none, because human knowledge continues to morph and change. And if you're not sure, look up tri-tip on Wikipedia, and you will see the history of tri-tip told with incredible accuracy. And I've been watching that page for 7 years. It's evolved a lot. Okay. Wikipedia is a great way to get an overview of almost anything. Is it academically acceptable? No, but that doesn't mean it's not a great entree. And then you can always look at the references, right? The bibliography, and say, let's go deeper.
Yeah, and it's funny. There's this whole, I know it's because the celebrity pages tend to change, but it's kind of hard to change stuff. But I always equate it to, I don't tell the kids this because they don't even understand what it is. It's like when we used to have encyclopedias in our house.
Yeah. The
Like,
day that thing's printed, it's 30% inaccurate.
Yeah, I can get an overview. I can get a jump off point. I can get started. But if I really want to do better research, I'm going to go somewhere else. So yep. I'm not afraid of Wikipedia.
Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah. If you're sitting with your encyclopedia at home, that's not real research either, dude. No. So anyways,
even the textbook is kind of like Wikipedia, but it's,
the textbook's like a really bad Wikipedia. Yeah. Like if you can get World War II done in 5 pages, you are not a good source. That is not good. So anyways, back to Number Mania. A Google or Microsoft form, name, number, and fact. So 3 boxes. Okay. I've seen and done this before where I've had 28 or 29 kids give me 1 fact each in under 5 minutes, Rocky. Now, when you do a Google form, where does that go? Spreadsheet.
Yep.
So I share the spreadsheet to the whole class, view only. And they can go and grab a few facts from there, and then they can put them in a slide. And what we do on the slide's a really dirty trick that's cool. If you've ever seen the Noun Project,
yes,
there's another one called Flat Icon that's a Google add-on. We pre-position 10 or 12 images. So if we were doing Bunker Hill, I might have a British warship, I might have a fence, I might have a couple of cannons, I might have a tricorn, I might have a British flag and American flag. So I pre-position 10 or 12 graphics. So be the student now. I go over to the spreadsheet, I find 4 or 5 facts that sing to me. I paste them into my slide, I pull in some graphics. Bro, we got kids making infographics in a half an hour from a dead start. It's nuts. And so I think it's a higher level in terms of blooms and what you're doing, and it's more technical than the thin slides. But if you look at Dr. Scott Petrie down in He's at John F. Kennedy Medical Magnet School in so is it Woodland Hills? Woodland. Anyways, it's North LA, doing some incredible stuff with AP kids. So that's Number Mania, which that's my favorite one of the more complex protocols
Well,
right now.
and that's pretty cool too, because then it gets kids into it, and it gets, to me, besides getting the kids to buy into you and trust you, motivating the kids is the biggest deal. If you motivate the kids to do the work, they're going to work their tails off no matter what it is. And the one thing, I got this from Ryan O'Donnell, but I do this every year and the kids love it. I only do it a couple of times a year, is, similarly, doing the fake social media accounts where they just have to do little snippets.
Yeah.
So they'll get into the Instagram accounts. And when I first did, I'm like, oh, this is fun. And then there was one kid in particular that I read, and I'm like, what is he writing about? And he was writing so deep. It took me a couple, Twitter posts for me to read of his, like, oh, this kid is really clever. This is a breakup letter between the United States and England after the Revolutionary War. And it, with the way he was wording it, so he was getting super creative, and he was one of those students who was really smart, that if you just told him to write a paragraph, or if
He
you
would
told
be
him to write
gone.
an essay, he's
Right.
like, this is boring, I don't want
He'd
to
be
do it.
running for the hills.
So, that sounds like the infographic is kind of the same way. Hey, if you like it, add another fact. Oh, wait, cool. If you're into it, keep going until your infograph, has however many facts, or make it look nice. It also has a creative factor, so kids who want to be creative can, manipulate it too.
Well, and you said motivate. I really reject the idea that we motivate kids. I think kids, the more subtle thing is to release the impediments to them becoming engaged. I don't.
Sure.
This idea of being like, that's another big deal I haven't talked about for a while on the protocol stuff. Is one of my design constraints on protocols is, if you think about it this way, Rocky, there's two main ingredients in the classroom. There is the curriculum, and then there's the teacher affect. Those are really the only two ingredients. And you could have a really crappy curriculum, and your teacher could be Robin Williams, and you could live with that.
Sure.
Here's a problem. Personality doesn't scale. So if you're going to depend on Robin Williams-esque characters, or who's the gal from Freedom Writers, or Jaime Escalante, if you're going to depend on the teacher's persona to get the curriculum done, you have a non-system. Think about that for a second.
No, for sure. And not everybody's, we've all done this, as good as it is in every class, and as good as, oh, this was a great lesson.
Right.
You're teaching to 100 and whatever students. It's not going to be, you're not going to touch, hopefully you're touching as many people as you can, getting as many people, but your personality, I guess, so to speak, isn't going to be, that Robin Williams character. Yeah, I'm not quite into that, the way he does stuff. You're not gonna, It's not going to be 100% foolproof.
Right. So part of the idea of protocols is, what if the lesson design and the task the kids are doing, and this is where you're going with the Instagram thing, what if the task is so good that the teacher persona doesn't matter? And that's the other reality. What if, because I think we've all know teachers like this, they don't have much of a personality. They're kind of flat, and yet their classrooms hum right along. And you go, how does that work? I'll tell you how it works. They have good lesson design.
Yeah.
And they are not counting on their personality to run the room. The lesson is the key thing. And I think that's one of the big things we're trying to do with protocols, is create lessons that don't need my personality to make them go.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good point. That is a good point, because we've all seen that. I've had a teacher early in my years who was a mentor teacher, who was a super great guy and everybody loved him, but he wasn't, up on the desks, like standing and going crazy. And, he was not boring because everybody loved him, but like you said, it was
wasn't
more
not
the
a
lessons than it
wasn't a
about him.
personality driven classroom. And just think about, line up 1,000 teachers, right? Not everybody is Robin Williams. In fact, I would say probably less than 10%, which means 90% of your teachers are depending on the book being interesting. That is ugly. that is ugly. So with protocols, we try to create experiences. By comparison, if you're familiar with the military, follow this. How do they do with boot camp? Well, historically speaking, they do a pretty good job. Are they depending on the individual drill instructor being cool to get that done? No, because they have a very scientific and practiced approach to how things are going to get done. And so that's part of the protocol idea, right? We all know football or any kind of coaches that are not very good socially, but when they go to practice, it's on. And the plan is what works. It's not the storytelling. And
Yeah,
we get a few coaches that are good at storytelling and planning, and then they turn into Bill Belichick, right? No, Bill Belichick's not known for his bedside manner. You know what he's known for? Over planning.
yeah, for sure. At least not in front of people. And I guess you
Right.
can look at a lot of those guys that are, you know, I mean, even if you're going to talk about somebody like Greg Popovich or somebody like that, who,
Mhm. Some of them are blessed to be good orators, and some of them are blessed to be wacky, fun people. But most coaches are judged on their wins and losses.
yeah.
And those come from well-designed practices.
So talk you're I know what your protocols are, but can you explain your I know you're explaining them as we go, but a
Yeah,
little bit
we're
more
kind of
your edge
unpacking them as
protocols.
we go. I would say the quickest definition for me is that when teachers think of a lesson from here to here that happens one time, they're denying their kids the repetitions. So one of the big focuses of protocols or edu protocols is to build packages that you can do literally all year long. And so we had talked about like the thin slide thing for the KWL chart type of model. I can use that 4 times a week, man. And what happens is the kids keep getting better and better as the cognitive load keeps lowering and lowering as they get better and better. So think of practices you can use. I think like a Venn diagram could be considered an edge protocol, except it's kind of boring by itself. Um, but the thing is, you can use a Venn diagram in math, you can use it in econ, you can use English. So think of things that are transcendent that you can use over and over again. Like another one we haven't talked about is the good old Iron Chef, right?
Yeah.
So an Iron Chef is basically a jigsaw. Anybody that's ever seen a jigsaw. I tried doing jigsaws after I got done at National University, and I was like, wow, these are really cumbersome because I have all these papers to turn in, and how am I going to grade that? And how do the kids see each other's work? It was really sloppy. And I took about a 5-year break. And then one day I was driving to a conference with a friend of mine, and we are like, let's invent a new pedagogy that's based on a game show. And we thought, oh, Iron Chef. So limited amount of time. I'm going to give you all the ingredients. All you got to do is dice them together into something that makes sense. And so basically, Iron Chef goes like this: 5 kids get a slide deck with 5 slides, and each kid is responsible for one portion of the content. So if we were doing John F. Kennedy, there could be one about his early years, there could be one about his young adulthood, there could be one about his military career, one about his presidency, and then one about his legacy. And you would ask each kid to throw 4 or 5 facts in there and a couple of relevant pictures. And the key to it, I think, is that we take 10 minutes to build, not 20, not 30, not 40. You got to get her done in 10. And then each group gets about 2 minutes to present. So now we have a reciprocal element. They're hearing about his legacy 4 different times. They're hearing about his early years 4 different times. They're hearing about those things multiple times. And so I'm not doing the repeating. The kids are doing the repeating. And then most of the kids do just great. So I can give them an 8 or 9 out of 10 on their slides, depending on some subtleties. And you slide right along. It's really neat. And so I can do an Iron Chef once a week all year long. Guess how good my kids get at presenting when they've done 35 presentations in a year.
I'm sure they get pretty darn good because I feel like that we do a little bit different than Iron Chef. I haven't done actually an Iron Chef yet. I need to. We do a similar, just kind of regular jigsaw, but the kids get really good at,
Mm-hmm.
I go to slideshows with professionals and then
And
I
you're like,
look at
oh,
them and
bro.
go, and especially the ones where they hand me the packet of the slides and they're
No.
exactly the slideshow. And I go,
Mhm.
can I
Oh,
just leave? Because you
can
just
I
gave me
just
the
leave?
packet to
Yeah.
read.
This is gonna
But
suck. So I'll read it in my hotel room.
yeah, but my seventh graders, as I'm sure your sixth graders do, they develop these cool presentations and they, and sometimes they're a little bit much, but then a lot of them do a great job of putting their presentations together and then standing in front of class and actually doing the presentations as well.
Yeah. And then again, you've got speaking standards are standards and listening standards are standards, right? And so
Yep.
you're actually using those standards. And then your prep is super low, Rocky, because once you've
Yeah.
got a deck, you just change the link and you're done.
Yeah.
So it's 5-minute prep. You don't your grade when they walk out the door. So low prep, high engagement, collaboration. You probably got 7 or 8 Marzano skills going on in one activity instead of just one at a time. It's really cool to watch it happen. And then the kids, they, like you said with your kid with the social media example, they get more and more mature, they get more and more engaged. And what happens is they start talking about the content more and less about how do I get through the task. And that's my
Yeah.
favorite part. When they know how to present the content and they're less worried about the task. And because that's the reason we teach, right? Is the content. But when you change the task every time, you fill up their cognitive load. And if you think I'm wrong, teachers that might be listening, think of what happens when your principal changes the bell schedule. Oh my God, it's chaos. And that's just a bell schedule. Imagine kids coming to school every day and we're using different graphic organizers and different activities every day. And they get beat down. And that's where 7th and 8th graders have that kind of glazed over look, because they're like, oh, dude, I'm just going to lose all day long. It doesn't matter how hard I try. I'm not going to know what I'm doing. I'm going to be doggy paddling all day, and I'm just tired of it.
And so all of these different protocols that you're talking about are working. You don't really have to switch gears all that much when you go at home as opposed to being in person.
You just play it a little, you play it a little slower and more meticulously when you're online. But what's cool is then when you come in face to face, they go and take right off. So there's no, oh, I was teaching like this and now I have to teach like that. That's not part of the game. My going away gift for you is, have you heard of Blooket yet?
I have not.
Blooket. It's like booklet, but it's Blooket. I'm going to tell you right now, Rocky, in 25 years of doing far out stuff with kids that they can't believe we're doing in a class, nothing has ever worked like that.
All right.
Never.
I'll check it out.
And so basically it goes like this. It's kind of like quizzes. Okay. Except here's the key. When you have one set of questions, you can use those 7 different ways. There's 7 different games you can play with the same set of questions. And so the ones my kids like right now, there's a tower defense game where you have to earn a bunch of points to play a tower defense game during the game. There's another one called Cafe, where you earn points to stock your cafe. And if you get enough points, you can glitch your opponents. So like you can shut down their computers, you can not shut them down, but blank them out. You can make their screen fuzzy. It's chaos, but it's awesome.
So is it a little bit like a cross between quizzes and Gimkit?
A little bit, yeah. It's got some of that Gimkit swagger to it, yeah. And then the other piece that's neat is it has a battle royale mode where it takes everybody in the class and puts them head to head.
Nice. So is there just to ask, is there a pay threshold on it, or do you get a decent amount?
It's like $3 a month if you want the full version, and I have not bought the full version yet.
Okay, good. All right. I will check that out. That sounds cool. We were just talking about, my buddy at work just asked about, is there any new test stuff that you're using? And I said, no, kind of the same old stuff. And now I can go back tomorrow and say, I just learned a new one we can use.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, that was cool having you on here. I can put a link to the Edge Protocols book in the bio. Right. You got a book with all your secrets and everything in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Actually, the new math book it's going live tomorrow. So there's a math edition of Edge Protocols by Lisa Nowakowski from your area. And
it is, yes.
It's already trending #1
nice.
In pedagogy at Amazon. So that's really cool.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining in, having a conversation.
Happy to. Great.